Hi and welcome to Last Watch for this my first video of 2019. Today we'll be looking at this little beauty, and when I say little I really mean it. This is by far the smallest watch that I have in my collection, coming in at a mere 38mm. This is the Timex Navi Harbor. If you go search on the Timex website you'll find it under Timex Navi Harbor 38mm fabric strap. The watch itself comes in three different colours. It comes in a rather snazzy blue with a blue bezel and a blue strap. It's also available in a black case with a black strap. Ultimately, I went for the more traditional of the three and went for the rather more conservative option. I first saw this watch just over a year ago. I nearly bit the bullet then, but held back and ended up going for my Glycine Combat Sub. As you can see, there are a few subtle similarities between them, but they are far enough apart to be considered two completely different watches. So why after a year would I go back and decide to buy this watch? Well, it all comes down to money, and there was a sale on the Timex website just before the Christmas. There's a 25% discount on this watch, so rather than paying the full RRP of £110, I got it for £82.50. The watch itself comes from the Timex Archive Project, where all the watches have been military inspired. In fact, before we move on to the watch, we should maybe have a little look at the box that it comes in. It's quite a slimline box. It has a canvas texture to it, although it is very much card. As you can see from the outside, it is labelled Timex Archive. You'll notice with the elasticated band that is on it, it kind of represents a book, or better still, an officer's notebook, looking back at the period round about the Second World War. If we open the box up, the watch would sit inside here, all very plain, nothing too fancy. This piece of card here pulls forward to reveal instruction manual, which is very, very sparse, and also a warranty card, which has yet to be filled in. This whole lot slips inside this white sleeve, again with the Timex Archive branding on it. Now, looking at the watch, what we have here is a polished stainless steel case with what Timex call a tumbled finish. When they say tumbled, it makes me think of the washing machine, so I doubt very much that they put these things inside a washing machine and put it on a spin cycle, but it certainly looks like it's been through the wars, although it is quite sympathetically done. Someone has spent a bit of time, possibly with a wire brush, to give this polish just a little bit of scratching. It is so subtle, but what this does is to give the watch what would be considered a vintage look. The case width comes in at 38mm. The height on the Timex website states 11mm, but I've had the calipers on this and I can assure you that it comes in just under 12mm at 11.8. I think if you were to take out the mineral glass that sits on top of this quite proudly, it would probably bring it down to the 11mm, but that mineral glass does add just under a millimeter of thickness. They could possibly do away with that, possibly have the glass sitting flush, but the fact that it sits quite proud again adds to the overall vintage feel and look of this watch. The lug width is bang on at 18mm. The lug to lug length comes in at 47mm, which again helps this to sit quite nicely on the wrist. The weight on this strap comes in at 58 grams. Before we look at the watch in more detail, let's have a very quick look at the strap. The strap is described as an olive green drab. I don't consider the green to be drab. It has a certain connotation where I come from. If something's drab, it means it's a bit bleak and not that interesting. But it is, it's a nice strap. It's not something that I would choose myself to keep on the watch, and at some point I will probably swap this out for something a little bit more fitting, although that may be difficult because the strap is only 18mm wide. Therefore there probably are some limitations as to what I can get to fit this. I may be able to get a 20mm strap with some description and get it to fit. Again, the strap is an olive green in colour. It's made from what they say is ballistic nylon, a military specification, the same material that they use to make parachute cords. That being the case, then this should be fairly durable and should be long lasting if you choose to keep it on the watch. The strap is only a single pass-through, so therefore is probably considered more of a Zulu than a NATO. It is 2 millimeters thick, 25 centimeters or 10 inches long. The hardware on the strap is polished. It's not tumbled like the rest of the watch. I still have the plastic on it. I have yet to remove it, but just under there you can clearly see that there is a Timex logo on the buckle. Moving on to the watch itself, we have a black dial with what would be considered dive style markers. They're a kind of slightly off yellow with a tinge of green to them. Just in from the dive style markers, we have a field style inner track showing a 24-hour clock. The Arabics here are orange in colour. At the top of the dial, just under the 24, we have the Timex logo in white. And at the bottom of the dial, just above the 6 o'clock position, we have the word quartz written also in white. Yes, this is a quartz watch. I can't find any details with regards to the movement that is inside the case. If we look very, very closely at the bottom of the dial to either side of the 6 o'clock diver style indice, we can see on the left that it clearly states archive, and then on the right hand side it says WR100. Yes, this watch is water resistant to 100 meters. So what we have here is quite a small petite watch, the smallest watch in my collection. It's certainly smaller than the current dress watch I have, which is a Seiko Cocktail Time, and yet this is waterproof to 100 meters, so I feel quite safe and secure to wash the dishes with this, and I might even consider going for a swim with it on my wrist. The handset consists of sword style hour and minute hands. If you look at the hour hand, it's been broken up towards the end with a skeletonized, almost like spyglass effect, which is quite nice as it will frame the 24-hour markers as it makes its way around the dial. The second hand is quite long and slim. It's a lollipop on the end with also a counterbalance on the other end. Surprisingly, the handset does seem to be painted. They are painted that same yellowy off-green colour, the same colour as the dive style markers on the exterior, and this is where it gets really interesting. This watch does not have the Timex patented Indiglow system, but the paint that is used here is a form of lume, and this watch does actually glow in the dark. It's not fantastic, it wouldn't be Seiko bright or even Rolex bright, but there is definitely a bit of glow there. Moving on, we have a bi-directional rotating bezel. The bezel is black with 12-hour markers, so we can use this bezel to double up as a dual time zone. If you notice there's a red pip at the 12 o'clock position, then as we follow it round we have minute markers up to the 3 o'clock position, so therefore we have 1 through to 15 minute markers, but at the same time it also shows the 12-hour clock starting at 1, 2, 3, going through to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then back to the red pip to mark the 12th position. We also have halfway indicators between these hour positions, a little stroke indices to show the half-hour markers. So when they say this watch is military inspired, they are not kidding. They have literally thrown everything at it. On the dial we have both divers and field style markers and Arabics, and they've completed the watch with a pilot style second time zone bezel. I should apologise as I've neglected to mention the fact that there is a minute track running around the exterior of this dial, and I'm pleased to say that the second hand seems to hit those markers correct pretty much 100% as it makes its way around the dial. So it's quite nice to see that this quartz movement and the placement of the second hand are pretty much bang on. Moving on to the back of the watch, there's nothing to write home about. We have a snap-on case back. There is a Timex logo in the middle of the case back, and it's orientated correctly, so if you look at the watch from the front and then turn it round to the back, it still reads in the correct position. It's nice to see that they've taken a little bit of time to put that on correctly, as it could have been orientated in just about any direction. Information wise, we have stainless steel. It doesn't tell me which type of stainless steel. It also tells me that it's water resistant to 100 meters. We have the Timex website. And lastly, we have details of the CR battery that is inside this watch. Again, just a reminder that it is a quartz. On the wrist, it looks and wears very well. I have a 7-inch wrist, and this 38mm is pretty much hitting my sweet spot with regards to size. I don't even mind the fact that the strap is a single pass-through on the back of the watch. It does add a little bit of height to it, but unlike a NATO strap, which I'd taken off a previous diver, which I have, this doesn't add any serious bulk. I think it's safe to say that this watch would sit very well on a wrist much smaller than my own. In conclusion, it's a great little watch. I think it's certainly worth the £110 RRP, although I am very pleased that I only had to spend £82.50 on it. I'm a big fan of its looks and I love the size. The size is just perfect for me. So things that I'm not too keen on, the bidirectional bezel. I have no experience with bidirectional bezels, but as you turn this one, there are no clicks. I don't know if that's the case. Please feel free to let me know whether I should be hearing a click when I turn this, either clockwise or anti-clockwise. And it's quite sluggish. It's a bit like stirring a spoon through treacle. Now I don't know if that's because the watch is new and it needs to loosen up. By all means, as I said, let me know. The handset, although quite striking and quite unique, I think they're a little bit weak. They could be a bit bolder. They could maybe stand out a little bit more from the dial. And lastly, the crown. The crown is somewhat small, but it is a small watch. It's unsigned. It would have been nice to have some sort of logo on there, but it's not a deal breaker. The crown is quite nicely nestled between those guards. But ultimately, this watch is a quartz watch. All that crown has to do is pop out to set the time, pop it back in, and away you go. Well, thanks for taking the time to watch my video on the Timex Navi Harbor. I hope it's been of some use to you. Before I go, I would just like to say, please keep watching, liking and subscribing to the channel. It was suggested to me that I should branch out a little bit more on social media, so I've decided to set up an Instagram page. So in future, you can catch me on YouTube or you can contact me through Instagram. In any case, I wish you all the best and hope you have a fantastic 2019. Catch me on the next video.